everybody. I just want to make sure everybody can see me and everybody can hear me. Can you please tell me if you can see me and hear me? Hello, everyone. Oh, great. Hi, everyone. Hello from Buenos Aires, Argentina. It's a pleasure for me to be sharing today one of my passions, which has to do with literacy, with people from all over the world. It's a real pleasure. Without any more delay, we are going to get started with our session today. You must have noticed that we posed some questions before we started today, as for whether you knew what phonics is, if you were sure about how to go about phonics routine, if you were sure about the difference between phonics and phonological awareness. All these questions were posed to you before, so that you can more or less give me feedback as for where you are in. Sorry, some people are telling me that they cannot hear me. Can I please ask you again if you can hear me properly? You cannot hear me properly. Okay, just give me a second and I'm going to try to make it better. Can you all tell me if now you can hear me properly? Okay, everybody says much better. Okay, I'm glad. So I was telling you that the questions we posed before the webinar were for me as a presenter to know where you are as far as phonics is concerned. And I hope that by the end of this webinar today, you can go back to those questions and answer, yes, I know, to all those questions, because those are the ones that I'm planning to address today. So first things first, what is it that we will be doing today? We will be discussing what phonics is. We will be talking about the importance of teaching phonics, that is to say, why phonics really matters. And most importantly, we will be discussing how to go about phonics. And I will be giving you, hopefully, useful tips to carry out phonics routine in your own classes. So let's move on. The first thing I want to make sure you have very clear is what phonics is. And I want to get started by telling you that phonics and phonemic awareness are not the same thing. It was actually one of the questions. Phonemic awareness, as the name very well says, is becoming conscious or aware of the sounds of a language. And it's very important that students become aware of the sounds of the language before they can relate those sounds to the letters that represent those sounds. So it is absolutely important that we, teachers of English, make our students aware of the sounds of this language. That is what phonemic awareness is. Now, having said that, I need to tell you that phonics builds on the alphabetic principle. What does this mean? Once our students become aware of the sounds of the language, they will learn that for each of these sounds, there is a letter or group of letters representing those sounds. That is exactly what the alphabetic principle is. Because English is an alphabetic language. Each speech sound is represented by a graphic symbol or a letter. Now, the reason why we have to teach phonics and we need to include the systematic and explicit teaching of phonics is because phonics will help our students decode and encode the language. Now let me tell you exactly what I mean. Decoding and encoding are words which are related to reading and writing, but which are not the same thing. Decoding is breaking the code. That is to say, students will see written language and they will be able to decode it. Now, this decoding skill is fundamental for reading. Encoding, on the other hand, is the ability to turn spoken language into written language. And although it is not writing, encoding is fundamental for writing. Why am I saying that decoding and encoding are not the same as reading and as writing? Because reading has to do with comprehension, and writing has to do with conveying a message. Before students can focus on comprehension and before they can convey a message, they need to get rid of the decoding and encoding effort. They need to become fluent in that. And phonics is the answer to those matters. So, what you need to know is that there is plenty of research saying that phonics makes a huge difference. Now, if you pay attention to the quote that I've got on my slide, I'm telling you that findings show that students who receive systematic and explicit phonics instruction were better readers at the end of instruction than those students who did not receive systematic phonics instruction. So it looks like if we teach phonics systematically and explicitly, our students will get the base they need to be good readers and good writers. So I'm going to stop for a little while here to ask if I'm going too fast or if everybody's following. Can you all tell me if we are okay? If I've got green light to move on? Okay, good. So I've got plenty of okays. So here we go. We keep on moving. Lovely. Thank you for your answers. Now, one of the other questions that you had today at the very beginning was as for the progression of phonics skills. Now, you will find that depending on the commercial product or depending on the books that you might be using to teach phonics, there are different pacing guides. Nevertheless, I tried today to bring to you the progression which is suggested by research by saying that initially we have to teach consonants and short vowel sounds. This is what we call the transparent words in English. What does that mean? Same number of sounds as letters, one-to-one correspondences. So for example, cat or dog, where you've got three sounds, k, a, t, and you've got three letters representing those sounds. From these one-to-one correspondences, we are going to move on to digraphs and blends. A digraph is two letters together representing one sound. For example, the sound sh in English is represented by the S and the H put together. That's a digraph. And blends, we've got consonant blends, which are two letters put together, like st in star. And then we move on to long vowels and final E, long vowel digraphs, and of course, we keep on moving to more complex correspondences like vowel patterns and syllable patterns, that is to say, common endings, common syllables in words. Now, you need to know that although English is a difficult language, it's quite predictable. Now, if you're interested in my giving you a clearer chart with the progression of phonics skills, at the end of the session you will have my email address so that I can send you this. Of course, somebody is asking me about diphthongs. Of course, diphthongs usually come after consonant digraphs and blends as well. Now, the idea for me is to show you that no matter the sequence you follow, we are always moving from one-to-one correspondences to one sound, two letters, one sound, three letters, one sound, 4 letters together. So that is moving from the very easy to the more complex correspondences. But before we move any further, I want to check all of you, my friends, have the basic glossary for being a phonics teacher. So you are going to do this together with me by ticking your boxes, your mental boxes, to see if you've got all these clear in mind. The first thing we are going to check is if we understand what phonics is. As I told you before, first students become aware of sounds. That is to say, they develop phonemic awareness or awareness of the sounds. Once students are aware of the sounds, they will have to relate those sounds to letter patterns. That is the alphabetic principle phonics is based on. Phonics is the explicit and systematic teaching of these sound-letter correspondences. Again, there's something else we need to check, which is diphthongs. As you very well know what a diphthong is, we've got 2 vowels together. Double and triple consonant blends are groups of 2 or 3 consonants which we usually find together in English words. Digraphs, 2 letters put together to represent other sounds, like in sh, like in ch, like in v, like in th, and so many others that we've got in English. And last but not least, one-to-one correspondence, which is the short vowels and the consonants, which are the beginning of the phonics path. Now, with this very clear glossary in mind, we are going to move on to something we need to have very, very clear if we are going to plan effective phonics routines. Phonics routines is, of course, relating the sounds to letters, but it's also about playing with the sounds. It's also about manipulating the sounds. And there are 4 basic manipulation skills. We've got segmenting, blending, deleting, and substituting. There's a very interesting question here. What about words which don't have the spelling and the phonics correspondence? If you give me a second, I am going to go in a minute to those words. Let me move on, and I promise I'll give you an answer to that. Now, these 4 manipulating skills that I'm talking about are segmenting. Segmenting is chopping words into their individual sounds. It's understanding that the word sheep is made up of 3 sounds, sh, e, p. That is segmenting. And segmenting is a skill which is directly linked to writing, directly linked to encoding. A student who wants to write a word first needs to segment it into its individual sounds and then find the correspondent letters to those sounds. So segmenting is a very important manipulation skill. The next skill is blending, which is the opposite. I don't know if you've ever seen beginning readers, but when they try to read, they sound out letters in isolation. So you probably will find a child trying to read the word cat going k, ah, but then they don't know what word they are reading because they are not blending the sounds. The more students blend, the easier it is for them to decode. So blending is a manipulation skill that is very important, and it's so related to decoding. There are some people saying that you've got problems. Can you still hear me and see me? Can you all follow? I've got a yes. Now it's okay. That's very good. Okay, good. So I'll keep moving. Now, the other two manipulation skills that you need to know about are deleting and substituting. Now, deleting and substituting are skills which are so necessary for reading, writing, and of course so related to spelling too. Let's imagine that a child wants to write the word hook. They have never tried writing that word, but hook looks like look and cook and book. So students will be able to delete the initial sound and replace it by a new one. I know book, so I'm going to delete the b in book and bring the h for h, and I'm going to get hook. These are all manipulation skills which are so necessary for reading and writing. Now, the fantastic thing is that if we try to include lots of activities and games in our routines where students can actually practice all these skills, they are going to get very strong when reading and writing eventually. So, dear all, am I ready to move on? Do you all follow? Am I going too fast? Okay, everybody ready to move on. Fantastic. Now, some minutes ago, there was a question as for those words for which phonics wouldn't help. So you're probably wondering about this picture that I've got there on the slide. Now, every language has some words which happen to be high-frequency words. And we call them high-frequency words because they occur very frequently in printed language. Now, of course, in English, there's plenty of high-frequency words. And you know what? 70% of what we read is made up of high-frequency words. These frequency words are so common to the eye that we are not decoding them. We are just recognizing them by sight. Now, the interesting thing about high-frequency words is that some are decodable, which means that our phonics knowledge will help us, but many of them are not decodable. Which means that if they are not decodable, that is to say, okay, there's somebody saying that they don't understand what blending is, so I'm going to stop and go back if you allow me. Blending is putting the sounds together. It's like k, a, t, cat. Blending is putting the sounds together to come up with a word. Is it clearer now? Yes, Marina is helping there. Thank you. Okay, good. So going back to the high-frequency words, I'm telling you that many high-frequency words are decodable, which means that I can use my phonics knowledge, but many of them are not. And because they are not decodable, my phonics knowledge does not help. So I need to learn them by sight. That's why they are also called sight words or tricky words. We tell the kids that they are tricky words because they have to pay attention. Now, the picture you've got there on the screen is because Mary Clay, a very big name in literacy, said that high-frequency words were like islands in the middle of the ocean. A student beginning to read and write in English is in the middle of the ocean. He is struggling. But imagine if every now and then there's an island where he can rest. That is what high-frequency words are. I stop making an effort because I recognize them by sight. Now, in the routines and ideas I'm bringing for you today, I'm going to teach you how you can make students feel comfortable with these high-frequency words. Because believe it or not, and I tell you I've got lots of experience working with lots of schools, this is what teachers report makes the most difference. Can you believe it? Since most of what we read and write is made up of high-frequency words, this speeds up the reading and the writing, and students become very good at recognizing these words in reading and writing them properly when they try to encode. I am talking about Mary Clay, C-L-A-Y. A-Y. If you're interested, you also write to me and I can send you more material to read. Now let's move on. So the main topic today has to do with effective phonics routines. And let me go back a little bit. We have already spoken about why phonics is important. We said that phonics is relating the sounds and the letters, and this helps the children encode and decode. And if they can encode and decode well, then in the future they become very good readers and writers. We also talked about the fact that phonics makes a difference, as I said before. We clarified that phonics is not the same as phonemic awareness. First, we become aware of the sounds, then we relate the sounds to the letters, and now the time has come to talk about how to carry this out in the classroom. Now, the first thing we need to know is that phonics is intended for very young children. We usually start the teaching of phonics when students are in kindergarten, and we extend it all throughout what we call lower primary, first, second and third grades. That is to say, when students are 6, 7 and 8-year-olds. In theory, by the time they are 8, they should be able to encode and decode properly, because that is, believe it or not, what we call the critical period for reading. As from that age, they should get rid of the decoding effort to focus all their attention on what they are reading. Since phonics instruction is for very young children and we need their full attention, phonics routines cannot last more than 20 minutes. As you can see there on the slide, it is suggested that there's a question here saying, if they are learning English as a foreign language, when should we be starting? This that I'm telling you is kind of universal. We should be starting as early as possible. That is to say, if we teach English to 5-year-olds, they can get started, no problem at all. So we are starting with kindergarten students and extending phonics instruction until they are 8. Now, somebody's suggesting 3, 4-year-olds. I would focus my attention with 3 and 4-year-olds on developing their phonemic awareness first. Making them aware of the sounds comes before phonics. Please remember that phonics is relating the sounds to the letters. It's not just bringing the letters to the classroom. So I would work with very young kids, first developing their awareness of sounds, and then when they are 5, now that they've got phonemic awareness, they are ready to learn the correspondence with the letters. As I was saying before, it's very important that the routine is short, sweet, and effective. If you allow me, from 15 to 20 minutes, that's fantastic. More than that, children will not be focused, and it's really very important that we make the most of these 15 to 20 minutes. Today, in my session in the morning, there was a very interesting question. Somebody said, but Luciana, will 15 minutes, 20 minutes help students retain all this? And I thought it was a very good question, because we are talking about a short routine to be carried out every day, hopefully. Every day, systematicity is the secret. Now, from 15 to 20 minutes every day will do. Short, sweet phonics routine. But what matters the most is how many instances are we going to provide later so that they can apply everything that they are learning in the routine. You will see it immediately. Are we ready to move on? Lovely. Okay. Everybody's saying yes. That's fantastic. So let's move on. So effective phonics routines have different stages. In the first place, an effective phonics routine has a phonemic awareness warm-up. You all know what a warm-up is. In this case, in the case of a phonics routine, what we are warming up is our students' ear. We are going to play with the sounds. We are going to do a little bit of sound discrimination. We are going to work and play with the sounds, making the ear aware of these sounds. That's the first part of the routine. Then we are going to get into reviewing any sound spelling that we have prepared before. There is somebody telling me, what if we have our students once a week? Okay, every time you have your students, you carry out your routine. Systematicity doesn't have to do with doing it every day if you don't have the chance. It has to do with doing it frequently. It is the frequency that is going to give you good results. Now, phonemic awareness warm-up first, and then we review any sound spelling relation we've taught before, and then we are going to teach any new sound spelling correspondence. After presenting the new sound spelling correspondence, we are going to get students to practice it. We are going to practice together, and we are going to move from scaffolded practice to free practice. And we will not forget about including high-frequency words. Now, this routine is going to be short, sweet, straight to the point, well planned, but it is actually what I am highlighting in pink over there, the instances of application that will make a difference. You need to remember that the reason why we teach phonics is because it makes an excellent contribution to being readers and writers. So it is very important that we provide our students with lots of opportunities to actually read and write so that they see why they need phonics so bad. But this is all going to become very clear when we keep on moving forward. There's a question here which I think is very important. Should we teach the sounds with capital letters? I'm pretty sure that this question comes from somebody from Argentina. Let me tell you that in Argentina we teach mostly capital letters, but there's plenty of research saying that we should be presenting both uppercase and lowercase letters, okay, and that kids can perfectly well cope with both. So when we teach the relationship between the sounds and the letters, we are presenting uppercase and lowercase simultaneously. Yes, simultaneously. Now, let's have a close look at what an effective phonics routine looks like. I brought this picture for you because it's more or less what a phonics routine looks like. We've got a special corner of the classroom where students can be sitting on the floor if possible, where the teacher is sitting on a chair, where everybody can see the teacher, where actually the teacher can make sure that everybody is focused and paying attention. Now, let's go through each of the stages of a phonics routine. I told you that initially we start with a phonemic awareness warm-up. Usually, for a phonemic awareness warm-up, we use songs, poems, tongue twisters, rhyme, and alliteration. There's plenty of fantastic phonemic awareness phonics songs for this. I just want you to become aware of the following. I've included in my slide two songs as an example, but as you can see, there is one over there saying tap, tap, tap your toe for ta. Tap for train and turkey and toy, tap, tap, 1, 2, 3. As you can see, we've got the target sound we want to work on repeated words. This is what we call alliteration. Now, when we bring alliteration in a song, we begin to warm up the ear because so many words begin with the with the same sound. We make the ear pay attention to that initial sound. And then we've got another one over there with hands in a pen. Ben and Jen have a big fat hen. That big fat hen is in a pen. A lot of rhyming words, a lot of words containing the target sound. It's a very good idea to work with songs and poems and tongue twisters and rhyme and alliteration because this is going to get our students started, warmed up for their phonics routine. And believe it or not, another good reason for bringing these songs and poems is that we are also exposing them to lots of high-frequency words. So I think that you tackle two things with the same resource. Are we ready to move on, people? Are you all following? Good, lots of yes. There are some specific questions over there. Please, then you can write to me, and I will be, of course, delighted to explain in detail. But let's move on so that we can comply with time beautifully. I want to show you a couple of wonderful things that are happening in some books. Of course, I'm using now some samples from National Geographic Learning books. This is a primary program which is about to come out, and I want to show you that this is a very good way about working with phonics, because as you can see on this book page, we've got a song, and that song is related to the topic of the unit. And of course, this is a song that has been included in the book for the sake of introducing vocabulary and structural language. But the fantastic thing is that the phonics lesson is based on that song. For many years, phonics used to be detached from the rest of the lesson. And I think that it's very important that everything has a connecting thread. So you are going to begin to find all these, like the same material or the same words that students are already familiar with are the words that you are going to use for phonics. And that's the way in which everything makes sense to the children. So moving on. After the warm-up, which we do with songs, there's plenty of very nice material. Most commercial products for phonics have phonics songs. There's plenty of very nice phonics poems. Again, I encourage all of you to write to me afterwards if you need material. But after warming up the students' ears, we are going to move on to the sound spelling review. Now, the sound spelling review, that is to say the correspondence between sounds and letters, can be beautifully done with flashcards. So routines can start with this review, and of course in this review we are going to include previously taught concepts. I think it's really very, very important that we get started by reviewing, making sure that students are already familiar with some sound spelling patterns. And I've pasted there two examples of what flashcards look like. It's very important that when you revisit and review the sounds, you also revisit and review high-frequency words that you might have included before. So in this revisiting and reviewing stage of the routine, you are going to do some phonemic awareness warm-up, and then you are going to review phonics knowledge, but you will also be reviewing high-frequency words. Remember that we are not only teaching sounds and letters in isolation. All this is for the sake of students getting to read and write eventually. I want to show you some typical phonics corners that I've seen in very lovely classrooms. I think this is a very nice suggestion for all of you. Now, the idea is that you can see that in these phonics corners, teachers have everything ready to save up time, because remember that the phonics routine is intended to last not more than 20 minutes. 10 minutes. I've seen wonderful routines only lasting 10 minutes. But as you can see in this phonics corner, there's a display of the letters corresponding to the sounds that they have worked on. I don't know if you can see it clearly, I hope you can, but next to each of the letters there is a picture. There's a picture of something starting with that sound. I think I'm going to show it to you in detail in the next slides. But as you can see, there's this phonics corner has not only the sound letter correspondences, but we also have some sight words with plenty of color. It's very important that you can present this in color because it helps students learn it by sight, as I said before. Now, when you introduce the new sound spelling, there's a very nice way in which to do this, which is by using flashcards. Most commercial products to teach phonics bring phonics flashcards, but then you also have very nice ones that you can download from the internet. But if you will be downloading from the internet, you need to be careful because there's plenty of stuff which is not high quality. A good sound flashcard is one which has the letter and then a picture of a word beginning with that sound. It's very important that students are familiar with the vocabulary, because if students know and they go like but they don't know how to say this in English, which is sun, it doesn't serve the purpose. So it's really very important that kids go like for sun, alligator, ball. It's very important that you can actually get these pictures together. You can either display them on a phonics corner, or you can have these flashcards binded together with a metal ring, for example, so that you can pass them one at a time when you are carrying out your routine. Now, according to research, there is a very good way of going about this stage of the phonics routine. It's called hear it, say it, and read it. For example, in the hear it part, we are going to give kids a range of words containing the phoneme. Remember that is what we do in the warm-up. The warm-up where we present songs and poems with lots of alliteration. So students will be listening to several words containing the phoneme that I want students to notice. Now, children will say which phoneme they can hear. This will be reinforced in an alliterative phrase. That is to say, there will be kind of lots of words and students will notice more easily thanks to alliteration. And then it's very important that we also practice this with an appropriate action. Remember the manipulation skills we discussed some minutes ago? For example, if you want to segment, you can clap or stamp your feet or do robot movements, so that this segmentation of sound or the blending with a body movement becomes a bodily experience for kids. I think it's really very important. After hearing it, we are going to move on to saying it. Reinforce the correct pronunciation. You need to remember every time that your student's mother tongue is not English. So there will probably be lots of sounds of English that do not exist in their mother tongue. So it's really very important that we also help them articulate, properly with the right pronunciation of those sounds. And of course, you can always compare and contrast the sounds of English with those same sounds or similar sounds in their mother tongue. Students also find it fascinating. Now, after the correct pronunciation and articulation, we are going to move on to, again, saying several words with including the phoneme. And here it says that you have to use robot talk. Do you know what robot talk is? Robot talk is a fantastic activity to carry out with students because it makes the segmentation clearer. You slow down as you talk, and as you slow down, you help students become aware of the sounds. So students can go like k, a, t, and it makes the segmentation even clearer for students. Students just love robot talk, believe me. And then we move on to read it. And read it is that we now show the new letter, we say the phoneme, and we add it to the display. This was the corner that I was showing you before. So this routine, and of course I want you to know that the name routine is very appropriate, because the more you do this, the more it becomes a habit for kids. So every time you keep on moving forward, you will notice that since it is predictable, students know how to go about it. So it saves time. So people, are we ready to move on? Are you still with me? Fantastic, lovely. Okay, good. Let's move on. Now, I want to show you again from this brand new material from National Geographic Learning. This is exactly how we go about it. We are presenting words with the target sounds. As you can see, we are even working on tracing the letters. Remember that decoding is very important. And as you can see, these phonics lessons include already these songs that we can use for warming up. Like, where's the violin, the violin, where's the wall, wall. All these kind of robot talk or chants are also very appropriate. This is going to warm up the ear and get students ready for their phonics lessons. Now, as you can see, and this is part of the new phonics material for the series Our World from National Geographic Learning, here we are presenting students with the P letter representing the P sound, and we are bringing words that the kids are already familiar with. Remember that that is kind of an asset, where we've got the P sound in initial position, like in pen and paint, or final position, like in map and top, or in middle position as happy. And then, of course, students can also have an activity where they have to listen to different words containing the target sound, and they have to determine whether the sound is at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end. This is what we call the warm-up. This is what we call listening to the sounds and relating the sounds to the letters. Now, in this same phonics component for Our World, we've got typical songs for phonics. Look at this, and this is actually a chant like pens and paper, p, 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 book and backpack, b, 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 toys and tablet. Can you see the alliteration? This is the kind of work we have to do. And then, of course, we all sometimes have games, and what I really like is that we are, of course, then bringing a story, and this story has lots of words with the target sound, plus the sight words that the kids can recognize. So immediately afterwards, kids have the feeling that they can read, and they see that paying attention during their phonics routines is an excellent thing to do. So this is, as I said before, the phonics component for the book Our World from National Geographic Learning. Now, as I said before, we have already warmed up the ear. Now we've reviewed and revised prior sound letter correspondences and sight words, and now the time has come for us to practice the new sound and letter correspondence that we've taught. And we must remember that phonics is for 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds who are children, very young children, and they love to play, and that's how they learn, by playing. So the practice stage of the routine has to be, of course, in this guise. We will be practicing all we learned during the routine through games, through manipulation tasks, using whiteboards, as you will see in a second, and of course bringing decodable texts. It's very important that during the practice stage we model what to do, we provide some guided practice, and of course then students have the chance to practice this on their own. Again, during the practice stage, we are going to have the hear it, say it, read it, but this time we are included a write it stage. Always saying words containing the phonemes in initial, middle, or final position. Very important. Saying the words slowly as if they were robots. Remember that the robot talk is so important. Then they can read it, okay? And it's very important that those words we have used in the routine, we can leave on a panel for them to see. And then it's also very important that children have the chance to practice encoding. That is to say, now I can hear the sounds. How do I represent those sounds with letters? And for this, my strong recommendation is that you use whiteboards. If you ask me, I never had the budget at school to buy whiteboards for the kids. So a simple white sheet of paper sometimes will do. I want you to pay attention. These are some very simple laminated whiteboards divided into 3 parts. I hope everybody can see it clearly. So the idea is that students are given words like shop and that they can segment them in individual sounds, and then they can relate the sounds to the different letters. A whiteboard like this one divided into 3 makes the kids aware of the different sounds in a word. Some of the teachers like to play with magnet letters, which are very popular these days, where students can manipulate the songs very wonderfully to frame new words. Sometimes you can dictate new words. These manipulation skills of deleting and substituting become so wonderful with magnet letters. And as you can see, I've got an example here from a whiteboard from Reaching to Phonics, also from National Geographic Learning, where you've got the whiteboard and the kids have different boxes, which we call Elkoning boxes, where they can realize that sounds actually occupy a slot or yes, I absolutely agree with you, Monica. They are easy to be made, okay? So you don't need to be sad if you cannot get whiteboards for your students, okay? You can make your own by laminating white sheets of paper. It's really very simple. Remember that sometimes it's not the resource, it is the activity, okay? It's the methodology, what we want to do with that. So you don't need to worry. There's plenty of chances to have whiteboards. Now, as far as high frequency words, it's very important that we have them displayed in the classroom. Remember, we call them sight words, so students have to learn them by sight. Many commercial products already bring the high frequency words cards, but you can also download them or have them displayed in your classroom, but just make sure that they are displayed in your classroom, definitely. Now, as for high frequency words, there is a kind of a routine suggested by research. It's very important that we get students to look at the word. Remember, we call it sight word. We hear it pronounced, that we hear it used in a sentence. Very important that then students have the chance to say it, spell it, and say it again. According to research, if we make students go through all these stages, they've got plenty of possibilities to keep their word in their minds. Now, moving on, I promise I'm going to rush a little bit. I don't know if you knew, but there's plenty of sight word songs and sight word poems and sight word stories. That is to say, there's plenty of material that has been specially designed to show sight words very frequently, so students recognize them and keep them in their minds. I love this one. It's like, hickety-pickety bumblebee, can you say the word with me? And for example, the word is can. Now spell it, C-A-N. Now shout it, can. Now whisper it, can. Now clap it, K-A-N. Now stomp it, K-A-N. Now cheer it. This is a fantastic way to get students to remember sight words so that they don't realize that after all, what we are doing is drill, because they need plenty of practice with this. Now, remember that I told you that the routine is intended to be short and sweet, not more than 15 or 20 minutes, but it's really very important that once you've finished the routine, in any moment of your lesson, students get to apply what they've learned during the routine. So it's about creating new scenarios. Now, for example, a suggestion that I've got is that you work with what we call phonics books. Phonics books have been designed so that students can practice all their sound letter correspondences. I've got some examples here like nan and pap, or a fat hat, or for example, these are the books that, for example, are part of Alpha Chant, also National Geographic Learning, that have, of course, plenty of words with the m sound or with the a sound phonics books are a perfect combination of words containing the sounds that the children know and the sight words that they can recognize. And it's not a coincidence that apart from calling them phonics books, we can also call them decodable books, because through the use of these books, students will be able to practice decoding. I've got a couple of very nice games and activities that you can bring to your classroom, and I hope you like them. And then, of course, if you're interested, we can keep in touch and I'll be sharing more. But there is this one. I don't know if everybody can see it. I call it the blending wheel, and I think it's fantastic, so easy to make. You've got typical endings of English words like ot and ut and it and cat. And as the kids spin, what changes is the onset. So students will have, instead of jot here, they will probably have, as they spin it, a letter P, and now they will have to go P, ot. They will have to blend. Isn't it fantastic? Do you remember when I mentioned deleting and substituting? This is what we do with this wheel. We delete, we substitute, and we blend. There's one here that I am a fan of, I need to tell you, that is called Feed Fred. It doesn't have to be Fred, you can feed any bug or monster, but these particular monsters ask children to feed them, for example, with words beginning with the M sound or words finishing with the T sound. So students are given a bunch of small flashcards, and students have to look at the drawing. There's no print, only the drawing, and the kids have to listen to themselves and decide if they are going to feed the different monsters with that. I can tell you, people, that children never get tired of playing these games, and you give them full training in all the skills they have been taught in their routines. Another one that the one that you've got here, I'm going to explain to you in the next slide. These are small flashcards with also pictures and different empty circles. The idea is that students look at the word and they say, okay, this is a bat, b-a-t. They segment the word into individual sounds, and then they find the letters to represent those sounds. I don't know if you can see it very clearly, but these are letters that are stuck on bottle caps. Okay, so it's also very easy to be created by the teacher. There's plenty of very nice activities that you can find online, but excellent phonics books bring them along, where, for example, students have to look at this letter, remember that it represents the sound K, and write where the K, car. Oh yes. Is there a s in tree? Is there a h in ham? So students have to listen and tick. And this, I am a fan also of this very, very simple resource where a student can manipulate the different sounds to form different words. And children play. These are the very same games that you can use in your routine for practice, but then they can apply all this by playing themselves. An activity that I like very much is bringing pictures that students can actually talk about. This is also for the sake of practicing oral skills and reviewing vocabulary and whatnot. So, for example, I give them a picture like this one, and I tell them, what can you see? And students say, a duck, and I encourage them to go further. Okay, a duck swimming, or a duck swimming in a pond. And the reason why I do this is because then I teach them, or I ask them to try to write that sentence. And by writing that sentence, students will be practicing also encoding plus the high frequency words that every sentence contains. It's very important to give students lots of opportunities for encoding. Whiteboards are an excellent opportunity. Another excellent opportunity is providing students with templates like this one, where they can draw something and make an attempt at writing. It's very, very important that they get plenty of this practice. And some more activities that you probably will find useful. Look at this one where students are given a picture and they have to name it. Balloon. Oh, balloon starts with a b, and they have to circle the grapheme that represents the beginning sound. There's plenty of material. You don't have to do all this at the same time. Remember that they can do one activity, but as long as they've got practice frequently, it will make a huge difference. Mind my words. And then you can have like spinning wheels like this one, where students, for example, have a look at the letter and they have to choose any of the pictures where the drawing or the animal or the object begins with that letter. There's plenty of wonderful things that you can do. I want to show you one which I really hope you do, and it's with fly swatters. Okay, and as you can see, a very creative teacher here decided that the high frequency words were like flies, so the teacher would name a high frequency word and the student had to find it very quickly and hit it with a fly swatter. This is so motivating for students. There's plenty of very nice activities. Of course, I encourage you once again to write to me if you need extra activities, but now that you know the concepts, you can do your own research and find material. Look at this one over here with plastic cups. 1, 2, 3, 4. Students look at the pictures and they decide if they are made up of 2 sounds or 3 sounds or 4 sounds. Yeah, the fly swatter is a hit. I suggest you try it. And coming to an end, it's very important that there is a connecting thread, that your phonics routine is not isolated. You need to remember that phonics is going from one-to-one correspondences to more complex ones. It's very important that you present the sounds in isolation or in sets so that children can make combinations. It's very important that in your routines you review, present, practice, but mostly it's very important that you give your students the chance to apply. Remember, phonics is not supposed to be tedious or boring. It has to be playful. Students are supposed to have fun. I have presented some games that are hits in my classes and that students really enjoy, but you will be able to create your own and find plenty of material. Believe me, there's high quality material in the market today. I've presented some wonderful books to you today. And remember, the ultimate goal is decoding and encoding. Always give students plenty of practice in reading and writing. So people, we've come to an end. I am so happy to have had all of you, so many people from all over the world. I am so happy. That's my email address, as you can see over there. Please feel free to write to me, ask me for advice. I love sharing with people from all over the place. I've got experience, but I keep learning every day about the experience from others. So thank you so much, people. I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you.